From the day Awana said I do to Akon, she had two crucial dreams. Number one, to be a good wife, and number two, to one day hear the tiny cry of a baby calling her mommy or Eka. But life, as we all know, we always want to give you lemon. The first year of their marriage was quoted in sweetness. Akon will lift her up and spin her around in the living room, and the both of them will be laughing like children. They will sit sometimes talking about the number of children they will have and who they will look like. Awana had already chosen Idara, Ekemini, and Uya as the beautiful names because she believed they would come quickly. But month after month, her womb stayed silent. She prayed and cried about it, but yet every month her period would flow out, washing away her symptom of hope. As the second year crept by, the questions from family started floating in. Any good news? Don't you want your mother to carry her grandchildren while she's still strong? And each question was like hot coals pressed against her heart. They tried everything. They boiled herbs into bitter soups that scalded her throat. She fasted until her stomach became flat like that of a snake. Pastors also pushed her to the ground, shouting prayers that left her ears ringing. Still, her womb was empty. After endless persuasion, they finally went to the hospital. They did a series of tests and scans. At the end, the doctor looked at them with sad eyes and said, Awana, your tubes are blocked. You cannot conceive naturally. My God, she felt like she was dreaming. The doctor told them that IVF was the only door left open. She agreed to it immediately as long as she would become a mother. But no one told her that behind that door lay a battlefield. The first IVF cycle drained her life. She took daily injections until she was black and blue. Hormones turned her into someone she didn't recognize, crying 1 minute and laughing hysterically the next. How about the egg retrieval? It left her cramping and bleeding. The embryo transfer was a small flame of hope in a storm of fear. 2 weeks of walking on eggshells and 2 weeks of whispered prayers and tender touches to her still flat belly. Then the blood came, signifying that it failed. Akon heard her that night, but his arms felt stiff, like he was holding something broken he didn't know how to face. But Awana was a fighter. She wiped her tears, and after a few weeks, she borrowed money from her brother and signed up for another cycle. Second IVF, more injections, more bruises, and more hopes stitched clumsily together. This time, 2 embryos were implanted. She would touch her belly and whisper the name she had picked years ago. But barely 3 weeks later, she woke up in a pool of blood. The hospital called it a chemical pregnancy, a life that flickered like a candle and then died before it could even burn properly. Awana broke down. She cried. It was so bad that she didn't speak to anyone for 2 days. Akon on his part broke down. His comfort turned to coldness. They both reacted to the failure differently, and their house was as quiet as the library. She went back for a third IVF cycle. This time, it was even worse. Her ovaries overstimulated. Her belly swelled like she was already 6 months pregnant, but was just fluid. Permit me to call it cruel mocking fluid. She was admitted, barely able to breathe. Akon visited, sat at the edge of the bed, scrolling through his phone and muttering about bills. Awana felt herself slipping away, not just her health, but her very self. She was becoming a shadow and a ghost that haunted the edges of her own marriage. Yet, somehow, she signed up for the very last one. She sold her jewelry, borrowed again, did what she could legally to gather enough for another round. People around her were moving on. Her friends, once bridesmaids at her wedding, were now mothers of 2, some even 3 children. Family members no longer invited her to naming ceremonies, maybe out of pity. She isolated herself completely. Just her injections, her hospital appointments, and a God she wasn't even sure was listening anymore. One night, after yet another negative test, she found herself sitting alone in the dark, whispering, "Maybe I am cursed. Maybe this is my punishment for sins I don't even remember." The tears wouldn't stop. They poured from her soul, not just her eyes. She bled inside where no one could see. Because what else could a woman like Awana do when her greatest dream had become her greatest suffering? One evening, long after hope had once seen and brittle, Amana sat in the corridor staring at nothing. She placed a hand over her flat belly. There was no life there, just a hollow cave where dreams went to die. It was at that moment she heard that tiny voice inside her saying, "Try one more time." She agreed, not because she had the strength, nor because she believed it would work, but because there was nothing left for her to lose. The next day, she picked herself up, fragile as dry leaves, and walked back into the fertility center and sighed her name for yet another circle. This time, the doctors were blunt. "Your body is tired," they say. "You are not producing enough eggs anymore. We may have to consider donor eggs." Donor eggs? Those words sliced through her. A stranger's blood? A stranger's legacy growing inside me? Would the child even look like me or my husband? Would the child even feel like mine? Tears burned behind her eyelids, but she forced a smile and nodded. She went through the circle mechanically. Injections, medications, more hospital visits, and more bills. Ekon, her husband, barely glanced at the invoices anymore because he felt it was just simply wasting their resources. But Awana didn't care. This time, they transferred 2 embryos, and for once, she did not pray over them. Instead, she went about her days like a woman waiting to be told that death had finally arrived. 2 weeks later, she returned for the blood test, sat in the waiting room, ready to receive the news, be it positive or negative. The nurse called her name, Awana Edith. She walked in numb, sat across from the doctor. This time, the doctor smiled and said, "Congratulations, Mrs. Awana, you are pregnant." The words landed on her ears like foreign music. She blinked at the doctor, waiting for the "but" punchline. "Your numbers are good," the doctor continued. "Very good. It's early, but you are definitely pregnant." Awana couldn't believe it. Pregnant? Like I am pregnant? She left the hospital like someone walking through water. She held her stomach all the way as if the new life could slip out if she didn't protect it. When she got home, she found Ekon lying on the couch, scrolling through his phone. She stood in the doorway and whispered, "Ekon, I am pregnant." He looked up briefly and murmured, "God is good." Then he went back to his phone. No hug, no lift in his voice, no tears, no dancing, nothing. Awana stood there surprised at her husband's reaction, but refused to let it weigh down. The first month passed in fear. Every small cramp sent her into panic. She barely slept and ate. She lived each day clutching her stomach, whispering prayers. The second month was worse. Morning sickness that did not stay in the morning. She vomited until her throat burned. Her body was so weak that Ekon had to carry her from the bed to the bathroom some days, though he did it with the detached coldness of a man lifting a heavy bag, not a fragile wife. The third month came. She bled and she became weaker. Ekon had to rush her to the hospital. They checked. The baby's heartbeat was still there. The doctor said it was a subchorionic hemorrhage and she must be on a strict bed rest. No standing except to use the bathroom. No lifting, no cooking, no stress, just bed rest. Awana became a prisoner in her own bed. Akon hired a house girl to cook and clean, not for Awana's comfort, but because he couldn't. The 4th month came. The bump began to show. Awana would lie on the bed, running her fingers over the curve and whispering, "You are loved, you are wanted, and you are worth everything, my child." The 5th month brought fake kicks. They felt like miracles against her skin. She cried the first time she felt it, called her husband into the room and placed his hand on her belly just to feel the kicks. He was so happy. Finally, he would be a father. The 6 months, her blood pressure was rising, her ankles were swelling, and her head pounded like drums every night. The doctor said it was preeclampsia. He said it is dangerous and deadly if not managed well. Again, more strict bed rest, more injections and more medications that tasted like death. But Awana didn't care. She told the baby in her womb, "I will do everything just to have you." By the 7th month, her body was barely holding together. Her face was swollen and her hands tinkled. Sometimes her vision blurred until the whole world looked like it was underwater. Still, she smiled and prayed. The 8th month came with storms. One night, she woke up gasping for air. Her chest felt like a mountain was sitting on it. Akon rushed her again to the hospital. The doctor looked her in the eyes and said, "We have to deliver early. If we don't, you and your baby may not make it." Awana nodded, no hesitation and no fear. She would die 1,000 deaths if it meant giving her baby a chance to live. At exactly 34 weeks, they scheduled the emergency cesarean section. She was wheeled into the cold, bright theater alone. Akon refused to go in with her because he couldn't stand the sight of blood. She stared at the blinding lights above her as they cut her open. She felt pressure, pulling, tugging, and finally a scream. Her baby girl was here. They showed her the child for one brief golden second before whisking her away to the NICU. Awana closed her eyes with tears slipping sideways down her face. She had done it. After all the suffering, after all the brokenness, and after all the nights of empty arms and heavy silence, she had finally become a mother. But as they stitched her back up, something began to go wrong. Her legs twitched violently. Her blood pressure plummeted. Her vision went dark. She only heard shouts, alarms, and running feet. When she opened her eyes again, hours later, she was in another hospital room. Her mouth was dry. Her body ached everywhere, but she remembered her baby. It gave her reasons to bear. In the months that followed, her body became a stranger to her. She hardly recognized the woman staring back from the mirror. Her legs, once slim and strong, began to swell. At first, it was just the ankles popping up like small pillows. Then it climbed upward. Her skin stretched tight over the swelling, shiny and angry as if it could burst at any moment. Some nights, the pain was so sharp that she wept silently into her pillow, biting the corner of it so Akon wouldn't hear her cries and call her dramatic again. Her beautiful thick calabar hair began falling out in cruel handfuls. Each time she combed gently, hoping it was just shedding, clumps of it came out like black rain. Soon, bad patches appeared on her once proud head. She tried to cover them with scarves, but even that felt like dressing a wound that refused to heal. Worse than the hair loss, worse than the swelling was the weakness. Her swollen legs became useless. She couldn't stand. She couldn't sit for long without pain. She couldn't even carry her own baby properly. Every little thing required help, and each request felt like swallowing glass. She hated herself for it, hated needing and hated asking. One afternoon, she gathered her courage, called Akon her husband, who was sitting on the sofa tapping lazily on his phone. Akon, please, she whispered. We need money to buy things. The diapers, my pad and cream. Akon didn't look up. He didn't even pause his scrolling. He replied casually, and what are you bringing to the table? I barely have savings these days because every now and then you ask for money. The world sliced her open. She wanted to remind him of the nights she bled alone, of the mornings she vomited her soul out, of the baby she risked her life to bring into the world, of the swollen legs of the woman she once was before sacrifice gutted her. But the words jammed in her throat. She simply lowered her eyes and swallowed her pain like bitter water. After that day, asking became harder. Each time she needed something, maybe diapers or medicine, even airtime to call her mother, she hesitated for hours. She weighed the humiliation against the necessity. Most times, humiliation won and she chose silence. The swelling worsened. Sometimes her legs hurt so badly that she won't sleep until dawn. Sometimes, when she managed to drag herself to the bathroom, she would collapse halfway and silently she would crawl back. Her body was crumbling. She hated mirrors now. She hated photographs. She hated visitors who came with fake sympathy and left whispering behind her back. But most of all, she hated that she had no money of her own. No choice but to depend on a man who had forgotten how to love her. But motherhood wasn't done with her yet. She started forgetting things. At first, she thought it was just tiredness. She was after all exhausted beyond what any human heart should carry. But soon, it grew worse. She would boil water and forget it on the gas until the pot burned black. She will need to do something and then use 10 minutes to remember what it is she needs to do. The doctor said it was postpartum cognitive impairment. Big words that didn't explain the devastation she felt inside. It wasn't just her legs that had betrayed her. Now, even her mind was slipping away, piece by precious piece. When she told Akon about it, just hoping for a little understanding, he only laughed dryly. God forbid Barty know, and he walked away, leaving her there, feeling smaller than a grain of dust. Each day, Awana felt herself sinking deeper into a place where light could not reach. Each forgotten word and each forgotten action tore her apart. She wrote notes to herself now just to help her remember. But some days, even reading those notes felt like reading a language she no longer understood. Her once sharp mind, the mind that could solve puzzles, remember songs and quote scriptures, was now like a broken mirror, reflecting only fragments of the woman she used to be. And nobody cared, not even Akon, her husband. One morning, she woke up to the sound of her baby crying. Apparently, she was hungry. Awana shifted under the rough bedsheets, her body aching from another night of broken sleep. She tried to swing her leg off the bed and tried to stand, but her legs, swollen and heavy as stones, refused to move. She was confused. She pushed harder, grabbing the edge of the mattress, willing her body to obey. Yet, nothing. Emergency sweat broke out on her forehead. She slapped her own thighs in frustration, feeling the deadness there. Tears blurred her vision as she called out weakly. Akon, please come. He stumbled in, still rubbing sleep from his eyes. When she told him that she couldn't move her legs, that something was terribly wrong, he only scoffed. Now, Awana, I best stand up, Joe. You just want to be lazy. Her mothers did these things now, and they still went to the farm. They would walk long distances to the markets, carrying their goods on their heads, with children on their backs, and they still gave birth to 8-9 children and stood strong like tall Iroko trees. You, just one child, and you're already behaving like a vegetable. His words were knives, each one cutting her deeper than the last. But she didn't argue. She didn't even have the strength to. When hours passed and she still couldn't move, even after trying with all her might, Akon finally grumbling and cursing under his breath carried her into his car and drove her to the hospital. By the time they got there, Awana was barely conscious from the agony. The doctors acted fast. Tests, x-rays, blood work, endless questions she was too weak to answer. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the lead doctor, a heavy-set man with kind but tired eyes, called him to the office. He didn't waste time sugarcoating. Mr. Akon, he said, with his voice low and serious, your wife has suffered severe postnatal complications. From all indications, she's experiencing postpartum neuropathy. The nerves controlling movements in her lower body had been severely damaged. Akon frowned in confusion. The doctor continued, slower now, as if speaking to a stubborn child. That's why she can't walk, and that's why she feels no strength. It's a serious condition. Some women recover after therapy and time, but some never walked again. The words hit Akon like a slap. He shifted uncontrollably, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. Some cases even lead to amputation if care is not taken, the doctor said quietly. You will need to get a wheelchair for now, and you must pray. Pray very hard. Akon felt the blood drain from his face, felt the room tilt and spin around him. All his life, he had never heard of things like this happening to anyone. He sighed. Women really go through a lot. He stumbled out of the doctor's office and sat heavily on the nearest bench, burying his face in his hands. He cried, shaking like a child. He cried for the wife he had mocked. He cried for the strength she lost trying to build their family. He cried for the shame of his own blindness. He cried for the uncertain and terrifying road ahead. The hospital days became long now. Awana laid on the stiff hospital bed. There were no mirrors in the room, but she could feel the changes in herself. Some days, she had strength to hold her baby when they brought her. Most days, she would only press her dry lips to her baby's soft forehead and whisper prayers between broken breaths. Akon would sit beside her praying, Father, please heal my wife. Don't let her waste like this. Forgive me for not appreciating her. Some nights she heard him. Other nights she was too deep in her own darkness to notice. After 2 months, the hospital discharged her. They wheeled her out in a wheelchair. Her legs too swollen and useless lay like heavy logs across the seats. The journey home was quiet. Her husband drove slowly, carefully, and glancing at her every few seconds with a sadness he could no longer hide. They got home and life adjusted. Awana learned to manage what she could. In the mornings, she fed her baby from her wheelchair, balancing the baby carefully on her lap. She would roll herself around the living room, one hand pushing the wheels, the other steadying her little girl. She learned to cook sitting down, using long spoons and low burners. She learned to bathe herself with a sponge on a stick. She learned to live even when it felt like life had left her behind. And Akon? He changed. Gone was the man who spoke of lazy women. Gone was the man who compared his wife to the iron mothers of the old. Now he was her biggest supporter. He would tell anyone who cared to listen. Women are stronger than lions. They try. If not women, we for don't die since. We don't really know the battle women fight just to stay alive and carry the children we brag about. He would kneel by his wife's chair, hold her limp feet and pray, God, please heal my Awana. You gave her to me. Please don't take her away. Give her legs strength again. Give her joy again. And every time he prayed, Awana would cry silently. One day, after 6 weeks, a therapist began visiting them. She taught Awana small exercises, moving her toes, flexing her ankles, lifting her knees just a little. At first, it was like shouting into a deep dark well. But one afternoon, under the therapist's gentle voice and Akon's tearful prayer, Awana's right toe twitched just once, so small that even she thought it was her imagination. But the therapist jumped up, clapping her hands in excitement. You did it, Awana. You moved it. Akon, standing by the door holding his baby, dropped to his knees, tears rushing down his face faster than he could wipe them, thanking God. Some days, Awana will practice for hours and nothing will happen. She will cry and will refuse to eat. And Akon will whisper to her over and over, you are still whole to me, even on this wheelchair. Even without running or dancing, you are still my lioness. But I believe you will walk again. The gift of God added no sorrow. This strengthened her in a way as she started seeing herself walking again in her mind. Some nights, after everyone had fallen asleep, she would stroll through the old album saved on her phone. She would look at the pictures of a younger her standing tall and strong. Is this really me? She would whisper into the darkness. How did childbirth, something meant to bring joy, chain me to this chair? She would touch her legs and pray, although sometimes bitterness would creep in and other times anger would swell like a rising tide. All I wanted was to be a mother. All I wanted was to hold my child. Why do I have to pay this price? But then she would still ask God to help her unbelief and make her walk again. The therapy and the hospital visits continued. And after like 8 months, Awana saw herself in a dream, walking. It was so real. When she woke up, she and her husband held hands, calling it forth. 1 year later, when she had lost all hope, she was home alone with her daughter when her daughter stood up on her own and took the first step. Awana was so excited, and at the same time, she wanted to assist her so she doesn't injure herself. Out of that excitement, she didn't know when she stood up. She didn't even recognize what had happened until she heard her daughter and said, Mama, you did it. Then suddenly, she remembered she was standing. She turned and saw the wheelchair. She wiped her eyes, walked around again and screamed. Coincidentally, Akon came in at that moment. They took almost forever in thanking God. They had to take a firm, painful but necessary decision not to have another child. Not because they don't wish to, but because Awana's body had spoken. Almost every month, something new would take her back to the hospital. Her immune system, once strong like the Calabar women of her lineage, was now fragile, all because of motherhood. The hospital became her second home. The nurses knew her name. The receptionist would smile kindly and say, Awana, you don't come again? It go better. No worry. She will hear whispers from women she tried to block out. But she only born one pikin now. It no even reach twins or triplets. Why her body come weak like this? They didn't understand. How could they? One day, Awana felt something shift inside her. If I survived all that, then surely I survived for a reason. She began to share her story. First, to those who whispered behind her in the hospital, and her story made them to shut up. Whenever she sees a pregnant woman, she will hold her hands tightly and say, with all the seriousness of someone who had walked through fire, "My sister, this journey of carrying life is not the same as it was in our mother's time. Their bodies were strong, yes, but our battles today are different. The food is different, the stress is heavier, and the world itself is harsher. So don't ever take it lightly. Pray. Pray over your womb. Pray over your blood. Pray over your bones. Pray over the child you cannot even see yet. Speak life into your body every morning. Declare healing, declare strength, and declare safe delivery." The women will nod, sometimes with tears in their eyes, because Awana wasn't just speaking from imagination, she was speaking from her scars. Hey, African Tales by Karma Tribe, how are you all doing? For me, I am doing just fine. You all can tell that my voice is low, and I will tell you why. This story, as I was writing it, brought back a lot of memories. I have seen women who lost their limbs all because of motherhood. I have seen others whose skin changed drastically. How about people who lost their sanity all because of childbirth? I was still going to talk about mothers who lost their career, their dreams, themselves, just because of childbirth. My God, before I leave today, I would like to say this to those who mock a pain they have never tested, to those who sit comfortably and ask a woman, "What do you even bring to the table?" Please hear me and hear me very well. Sometimes, just agreeing to carry a life is already enough. Sometimes, just surviving that journey is the greatest offering she will ever make. So before you ask what she brings to the table, remember she built that table with blood, with tears, with scars you will never see. Because carrying a child is not just about a growing stomach. It's about a body breaking and bending in ways it may never fully heal from. It's about waking up and not recognizing your own legs, losing your hair, your memory, your strength, and yet still smiling for the life inside you. It's about bleeding and stitching, praying and breaking, yet still standing. Every heartbeat a woman carries that is not her own is a battle she fights silently. So please, never you ask a woman, never you try it to ask a woman what she brings to the table. Finally, before I go, dear Karma Tribe, never forget pregnant women in your prayers. That journey is not what it used to be. That journey today carries battles that are hidden under makeup, behind false smiles, and under "I am fine" whispers. Pray for them. Pray for their bodies. Pray for their minds. Pray for their survival, because bringing a child into this world is no longer just a blessing. Sometimes it is a war. And not every woman comes out of it whole. Some come out with broken bodies. Some come out with empty arms. And some don't come out at all. So please, remember the pregnant women whenever you are talking to God. Kindly give the story a thumbs up and let me get to hear from you in the comment section what you think about the story. If you have any experience to share with us as well, please feel free. If you have not subscribed to this channel, I bet you are missing a lot. Kindly punch on that subscribe button. And until I bring another exciting story your way, it is a goodbye from here, and God bless you.